Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back. We have Sheikh Khaled Jamil with us live from Najaf again. And we're going to continue our discussion on Tawheed. First of all, I'd like to congratulate everyone on the Walada to Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, which was this week, a few days ago. So, on this blessed week that we have, on this blessed occasion, I would like to welcome Sheikh Khaled. And, please start us off when we'll continue about Tawheed we were discussing last time.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. In the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent, all prayer and praise is due to the Prophet Muhammad and his holy household. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate my brothers and sisters for the birth of Al-Hurriyyat al-Insiyya, Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Secondly, I'd like to apologize if I sound like I have a heavy tongue. I'm having a couple of dental issues, so I apologize if it sounds like I'm slurring or I have a heavy tongue.
You sound great, Sheikh. No?
Barakallah feekum, barakallah feekum. So, we've covered the concept of Tawheed in multiple avenues. However, today, Sayyidina, I would like for me and you to take this into more a discussion role as we agreed, which is the concept or a dialogue, where we will discuss the Surah Al-Ikhlas. Surah Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Now, I don't think we will cover the whole concept today. However, we will begin discussing it today, and if we don't finish it, then we will finish in our next episode. What do you say to that, Sayyidina?
That sounds perfect.
That sounds perfect. So we will start with the first, which is obviously the first verse is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now there's discussions as to whether it's the part of a verse, whether it is the first verse of every chapter. However, we begin every chapter with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent. And a lot of brothers and sisters ask, what is the difference between Rahman and Rahim? The merciful, the beneficent, or the most merciful, or the most beneficent, or the merciful, the gracious. As you can see, ar-Rahim is translated into different ways into English, in the English language. And essentially what it means is, I start in the name of Allah, and we said Allah, and we will cover this through our lecture today, through our dialogue. Allah, lafzul jalala, which encompasses all of the attributes of Jamal and Jalal. I begin in the name of Allah, the name of the Creator, the merciful, the beneficent. The merciful is He who is merciful towards all of His creation. The beneficent, or Ar-Rahim, is He who specifies His mercy or a different form of His mercy to His followers, to those who submit to His will. So it's as if we have two types of mercy, Sayyid Ali. The first mercy.
Yeah. Can you go more into that? Like, what is the difference between Ar-Rahman and Rahim?
So Ar-Rahman is a general term. It's the merciful. That means that Allah shows mercy to all of His creation. A Muslim, a non-Muslim, the pious, the criminal, the meek, the weak, all of them receive the same amount of mercy, the same type of mercy, which is the sustainability of within creation. You understand what I mean by sustainability?
Yes, basically, just sustaining the universe as it is, sustaining us. Like our every single waking up itself would really be Allah's Rahman mercy, because we're being sustained through Him.
Ahsantum. Absolutely. Absolutely. Excuse me. Everything goes back to the one, to the Creator, to the necessary, or to the necessary in existence. You see, we believe in Islam that we are possible in our existence, meaning that our existence and the lack thereof is irrelevant to the universe. However, or is based on something else. The concept of causality, cause and effect. I am an effect of my father and my mother being together. You are an effect of your parents being together. They in turn are an effect of their parents, and so on and so forth. Now you can take it back as far as you want. However, we would have to come to an end. That end where there would have to be a form of existence that is necessary for itself to exist or necessary for the rest of creation. Meaning what? Meaning that this form of creation or this form of existence, let's not call it creation, that's a misuse of the term. This creator, this being was not begotten. This being was not created. Rather, he himself is necessary for existence. He did not have a cause. He was not an effect. He existed before the term existent or before existence itself. He is the one that gave existence arise from nothing. We don't say you can't have something come from nothing. Rather, it came from the source. That source is what we call Allah the Almighty, the necessary. His existence is necessary and his sustainability of creation is necessary, meaning that he did not create us and let us be. He created us and he continuously sustains our creation. Are you with me or did I lose you?
Yeah, no, you're there. You know, something we don't realize is like how perfect everything really is around us. That's why
Absolutely.
it's hard to believe how God doesn't exist when everything is so perfectly maintained. Like, just for example, just look at our bodies, the solar system, how everything is flowing so perfectly, is being sustained, you know, by Allah itself. Even
Absolutely.
like
Absolutely.
look at, you know, rain. Just look at something as small as rain, and when the raindrops are falling, imagine all that water falling at once, but not as droplets. We'll be flooded. It's just beautiful, like, and how Allah has maintained everything so perfectly. You know, I definitely agree.
Ahsantum. In fact, that's one of the proofs that is used, which is called Burhanul Nazm, or the proof of order within the universe. You know, everything fits where it needs to go. You know, there isn't one thing that's out of place. There isn't one thing that's missing that should be replaced with something else. There's a lot of things we don't understand. However, that what we don't understand, we can try to understand, we aim to understand, but that does not contradict that there is a form of or a creator that created everything, which is quite annoying when you see atheists or non-believers. They say, well, if you believe in God, then you've given up. Because whatever happens, you say, well, God did it. Well, no, that's not accurate. In fact, the first scientists were men of faith, you know, going back hundreds of years from the beginning of the Islamic expansion. And that's a completely different subject. However, the fact of the matter is, the Islamic religion is what motivated and drove Islamic scholars to study and explore. And it's something that the Quran constantly drives people towards. The Quran constantly says, do they not see within themselves? We will show them our verses or our ayat within themselves.
In fact, you know, it's definitely said seeking knowledge is one of the core, you know, aspects of Islam itself, what it preaches us. Prophet Muhammad has to think, even if you have to go to China, and that was said back 1400 years ago when traveling to China was, you know, almost impossible. Seek knowledge.
Absolutely. Seek knowledge even if it were in China. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So going back, Ar-Rahman, the merciful, it is he who has sustained existence, who has sustained his mercy through existence for all of mankind. Regardless of that individual's piety, regardless of that individual's wickedness and treachery, Allah has sustained that mercy for all of his creation, from an atom all the way to the expansion of the universe, or to the universe itself. Now we move on to Ar-Rahim, Al-Rahim, which is the most merciful, or the most compassionate, or the beneficent. That is something that is specific to the believers. That is a form of mercy that Allah gives those who believe in Him, a form of guidance, a form of external mercy, whether it be serenity, whether it be guidance. And we explained this a while back, I believe it was in one of our episodes, where we said in the second chapter, the first 4 verses, or the first 5 verses, if you exclude the first verse, Alif Lam Mim, from verses 2 to verses 5, Allah describes the attributes of the believers. And Allah says, it is that book or this book, however Allah refers to it in the form of a distant, of the absent, of the far, sorry, of the distant, to exonerate it, saying that that book in which there is no doubt is guidance for those who are God conscientious. And we said, and we explained that by fitrah, that the first guidance comes through your fitrah, through your intrinsic nature that drives you to worship. When you apply that and amplify that, you will find guidance within this book. Then Allah describes those attributes, those who believe in you and those who believe in what came before you and those who give from their own, from what we have sustained them or what we have given them, and those who believe in the unseen, and so on and so forth. Then the Quran says, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. It is they who have been guided by their Lord. So that second guidance here is an add-on to the first guidance that is found within this book. That second guidance at the very end, in the 5th verse, describing the believers, that guidance is added by Allah. Because we see here it says, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. It is they who have been guided by their Lord. So after they have corrected their fitrah, and they sought God, and they followed the faith, and they followed belief, it is then that Allah guides them even further. And likewise happens with those who decide not to, who decide to go against their fitrah, against the form of worship. Allah in the next 2 verses describes the non-believers. He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, those who disbelieve, it is the same whether you warn them or you do not warn them, they will not believe. Then the Quran says, خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Allah has sealed their hearts. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. وعلى ختم الله على قلوبهم. I can't recall the verse right now. However, here Allah, we see Allah contributes that to him, to himself, the fact that he sealed their heart. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. Nonetheless, the verse continues and says that Allah has sealed their hearts and their hearing. However, over their eyes is a veil, that they have placed a veil over their eyes as a retribution for what they have done, as a payback for what they have done by sealing their hearts and by refusing to follow the word which they understand and they believe in. Because that's what we refer to when we're talking about the non-believers. We're not talking about those that have doubt. We're talking about those who know the truth and refuse to follow the truth deliberately. Those individuals, Allah will seal their heart, and that they will not have that veil removed from their eyes, because they refuse to remove that veil from their eyes.
No, it makes a lot of sense when you look at this verse and you think about all the tragedies that we had with the Ahlul Bayt and everything, and how everyone, they understood the position of the Imams, yet they did what they did.
Ahsantu.
Like when you think about I was reading about Imam Hadi Ajlal, and before he was born, the Abbasids at that time, they knew he was going to born, and they knew he was going to bring their end. Like they understood this, and yet they're still trying to prevent him from being born. Like, how ignorant can you be? So this verse probably perfectly describes those people, that it's like, I know this is true. I know that this person is going to be born, and let me just try to prevent this.
Yeah.
I think it's our own ego, our own ignorance that gets in the way sometimes from
It's
us.
no different than Pharaoh. It's no different than Pharaoh when he
Yeah.
knew that a son will be born to the Hebrews, to the Jews, who would bring his demise. Instead of him becoming a better individual, so that the prophecy does not apply to him and applies to somebody else. No, rather we see he starts killing every of their children off. Which was the same thing. In fact, in narrations it says that they would follow the family of the imam, no different than the way that the Pharaoh and his soldiers would follow the Hebrews or the Jews, actually, not the Hebrews, the Jews. Nonetheless, it's the same concept of history repeats itself when it comes to the believers. And it's funny how throughout history it is the believers who have been the ones that have been oppressed and suppressed. As much as modern history likes to paint a different brush, when you look at the actuality, it is the true believers who have been oppressed and suppressed. Hence, we see that whether it be in the Bible or in the Quran, the quote is very similar, that the meek shall inherit the earth. And the Quran, Allah says, and we have written in the Zabur after the dhikr, and al-ardu yarithuha ibadiy as-salihin. Ibadi al-mustad'afin, that the earth will be inherited by my servants who have been deemed meek, who have been deemed weak on this earth. Now, there's a difference between meek and weak, obviously, but we carry and we see this day in, day out, whether it be back then and whether it be now. And something that our brothers and sisters need to realize is that history is written by the victors, by the more oppressive. And that includes Islamic history as well. We're not an exception, Sayyidina. We are no exception. We have two forms of history. We have the history that was written by the emperors of Islam, the Islamic emperors, excuse me, the Islamic dynasties, and we have the history that was suppressed and that people would share in secret. And in all actuality, that was written by the Ahlul Bayt. The tragedy of what happened to Ahlul Bayt and why they were suppressed and why they were oppressed. And why is it that right after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, that oppression started upon their family, upon his family? And why is it that the Quran clearly states, "Oh Muhammad, ask them for a reward"? Ya Muhammad, no prophet before you asked his nation for a reward. Or you are the only prophet that will ever ask his nation for a reward. But you will not ask for a monetary reward. You will ask that they be good to your family, that they be kind to your family. The Quran is trying to speak upon what happens after your death, Ya Muhammad. Beware what is going to happen. Hence, we see the Prophet, when he picks up Imam Hussein, when Imam Hussein was first born, he kissed him from his throat, and he would cry. And the narration, it says that Salama entered her, and the Prophet entered Salama's house, and he told her, "I'm going to take a nap. I'm tired. I feel tired. I want to take a nap." So as she says, as I was cleaning the house, Hassan and Hussein entered his room, and I didn't have time to catch them. Then I heard the Prophet crying. She didn't realize that they had entered the room, his room. She says, I heard the Prophet wailing, crying. When I entered, I saw him holding Hussein and saying, Mali wa malu Yazida, la'anallahu Yazida. What have I done to Yazid? May Allah damn Yazid. What have I done to him? So I said to him, Ya Rasulullah, what is going on? Why are you crying? Your beard is wet, is soaked with your tears. He says, Ya Salama, right now Jibreel has just left, and he told me how my son is killed. She says, and how is that, Ya Rasulullah? And he describes to her the battle of Karbala. Now, this is narrated not through our books. This is narrated through our brother Sunni's books. Then he takes out a small jar with a little bit of sand, and he says, Ya Salama, keep an eye on this jar of sand. If it becomes filled with blood, then know that Hussein has been killed. She says, where will he be killed? He tells her, in a land called Karbala, in a land called Karbun wa Bala, a land of tragedy, a land of karb, kurub, of hardship and tragedy. That's why they say that when Imam al-Hussein salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, when he got to Karbala, his horse stopped. by itself. He tried to get the horse to move. The horse refused. So he looked at his companions and he says, which of you knows what land this is? One of them, he answers him and he says, Yabna Rasulullah, this is a land called Karbala. So he gets off his horse and he says, lay your horses here. Set up your tent here. This is our final destination. Now, when we look at history, it is very important that we look at history in a broader sense. And not only that, in an objective sense. Let's not look at history from the point of view of the fact that I am a Shia, let me look at the Shia concept of history. Or I am a Sunni, let me look at the Sunni concept of history. Or I am a Jew, let me look at the Jewish concept of history. Let's look at history from an objective standpoint. That way, we can get a clearer picture. Now, sorry, Saeed, are you with me? I feel like there's a lot of lag between us.
No, it's just like a few second lag, but I get it.
Okay. So returning, so the first verse of Surah Al-Ikhlas says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, we covered that. Then we begin with Surah Al-Ikhlas. Surah Al-Ikhlas means the chapter of Ikhlas. Ikhlas here means devotion. Ikhlas here means sincerity. Surah Al-Ikhlas says, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. The first part says قُلْ. قُلْ means say in Arabic. That قُلْ is a command. So if I come to you, Ya Sayyid Ali, and I say to you, say to them, that word say to them is a command. So now it is a commandment from Allah. First, let's look at what happens. Historically, they narrate that the polytheists of Mecca, the people who used to worship the idols, the idol worshippers, not the polytheists, the idol worshippers, came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they said to him, Ya Muhammad, O Muhammad, hadihi alihatuna. Hadihi means this is our God, or these are our God. These refers to what you can point towards, to what you can see, to what you can hear. To what you can see, to that which is in sight, that which is near to you. So they said to him, these are our gods. Point towards your God so that we may know him. They say then the verse came to them. Then the verse was revealed to the Prophet. O Muhammad, respond to them. Tell them, Huwa Allahu Ahad. Huwa is used to refer to the distance, to the Tawheed who cannot be seen. Is that clear?
Yeah.
He is not here, who cannot be seen. Allah, that word, the word Allah here refers to, as we said earlier, we have the word Ilah, which is God with a small letter G, and we have Allah, which is God with a capital letter G in English, God. Allah is a word that refers to the creator of all things. The alif wa lam in the beginning is added as an emphasis to the only God. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Therefore, when Allah uses the term huwa, Allah is a term specified to the Almighty, to the Creator. So we have different terms, different names for God in different cultures and different faiths and different religions. For example, you might say Yahweh. If you were a Jew, you might refer to God as Yahweh. In Arabic, it's Allah. Allah, like we said, it is an emphasized form. That alif wal lam puts an emphasis on the term of ilah, referring to He the Almighty. He the Almighty. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Here, Allah, this term Allah gathers all concepts of attributes of Allah within this term. That's why they say that Qul Huwallahu Ahad is pointing to He who is absent, who cannot be seen, who cannot be heard, nor can He be perceived. Who was that? The Almighty. The Almighty Allah, Allah whose all attributes are, or who holds the utmost concept of the attributes. We have a narration here, if you don't mind me sharing this with you, Sayyidina.
Of course.
When it comes to the term Huwa, there's a narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He says, I saw Al-Khidr alayhi salam in the dream the night before the battle of Badr. So I said to him, Allimni shay'an, teach me something, unsaru bihi ala al-a'da, which I could use for victory against the enemy. They say Al-Khidr said to him, say, O Ali, say, Ya huwa, ya man la huwa illa huwa. Ya huwa, O he who is absent, who cannot be seen. He who there is none other but he. They say that when he woke up, he told the Prophet Muhammad what he saw. The Prophet told him, Ya Ali ullimta al-ism al-a'zam. O Ali, you have been taught al-ism al-a'zam, the grand name. And they say that the Imam sallallahu wa sallam alayhi used to always use this dhikr, especially Yom Safin. And Safin, when he fought the enemy, he used to constantly repeat this.
Can you just repeat just for everyone listening, just the dhikr itself?
Ya huwa. Ya huwa. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me, I don't want to make a mistake. Ya huwa. Ya man la huwa illa huwa. Ya huwa ya man la huwa illa huwa. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Now, they say, Amir al-Mu'minin salawatullah wa salamu alayhi said, the word Allah means al-ma'bud. The word Allah means al-ma'bud, the one who is worshipped. Alladhi ya'lahu fihi al-khalq. There is a difference of opinion of where the term ilah came from. The term God with a capital G, where it came from. Some say that it came from the concept of walaha. Walaha, which means tahayyara. Tahayyara means that people are uncertain of who he is. That the hearts and minds of people cannot grasp his magnificence. Hence, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, قال الله معناه المعبود الذي يأله فيه الخلق. Allah means he who is worshipped, who people are constantly searching for him, and are uncertain of him, of what he could be, of what he really is, of what he truly is. And Allah, he who is masturun an dark al-absar, he who is mastur means hidden, means cannot be seen, cannot be perceived by your sight. Al-mahjub an al-awham wal-akhtar, and he who is veiled from your thoughts and your whims or capability of understanding. Is that clear, Sayyidina?
Yes, I feel like that's because we are incapable of perceiving him.
Absolutely, absolutely. We covered this earlier with the Tawheed, with the lectures of Sayyidah Fatima and pointed out from Amir al-Mu'mineen. Absolutely, we cannot perceive his existence because his existence is beyond the physical concept of understanding. And anything that we can understand is limited by our physical concept of understanding. Therefore,
the normal example we usually get from people is just like, just look at the sun. Can you look at the sun for more than a second? Now imagine, the one who created the sun.
Well, actually, You can look at the sun for more than 1 second. That's how Galileo went blind. Galileo went blind because he kept on looking at the sun through his telescope that he created with his own hands.
Yeah.
However, even that is, you're trying to give an example to explain the understanding. The fact of the matter is, the simplest way of putting it, God is beyond creation. God is beyond our concept, and everything that we can everything that we can understand or conceptualize is created, is limited by our own understanding and limits. Therefore, if you want to conceptualize God, if you want to put him in a concept where you can understand him, you have limited him to your level of understanding. That is why you cannot understand God as he truly is. Is that clear?
Yeah.
I remember a while back, I was trying to explain the concept of plasma to one of my friends. And he's like, I still don't get it. I still don't get it. So I started laughing. He says, why are you laughing? I'm like, subhanAllah, we cannot get something that is as simple as plasma. You can sit here and you can try to explain it, but the fact reality is, unless you touch it, unless you understand it, you cannot really understand it. However, we are trying to claim to understand the creator of all creation. And I think that becomes even simpler to understand once you start studying quantum physics. Um, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense in most cases. In quantum physics, doesn't make sense because it's not bound to our concept of reality. Whether it acts as a wave or a particle or what have you, it doesn't compute. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense why it would behave, as a particle and as a photon at the same time, whether it's being observed or not. So, if that doesn't make sense, how can we expect the Almighty to make sense to me? Or if something as simple as quantum entanglement, we cannot understand quantum entanglement properly. How is it that you can quantum entangle two particles and that they would communicate simultaneously, abroad great distances, across great distances from abroad, as if as if they're right next to each other without lag, without, any issues, when everything we have in our own world suffers through lag, through distance, through time, through space, However, quantum entanglement doesn't. But we want to understand how the Almighty works, what he really is, Alhamdulillah, nonetheless. If you don't mind, we'll move on to the other part. As we said, we don't have a lot of time, and I don't know how long have we been going on for now. I haven't been keeping track of time, Sayyidina.
We have a few more minutes. It's been about 34 minutes so far.
Inshallah. We'll stop at the concept of Ahad. Qul huwa Allah Ahad. Allahu Ahad. What does this word Ahad mean? Let's explore it. I'm gonna let you take the reins on this one, Sayyidina.
So I would say Ahad means the one instead of Wahid. Ahad is, itself, just one itself, indivisible.
Sent. The word Ahad is extrapolated from the concept of Wahid, of one. However, Ahad is not one. There's a difference. Ahad is not Wahid. How so? Ahad does not enter the concept of numbers. It is not a numerical concept. Meaning Ahad is one, indivisible, as you said, is one. It is the ultimate, the utmost, the end, and the beginning. Is that clear?
Yeah.
They say that between Ahad and Wahid is a lot of difference. What is the difference? Wahid has a second, has name, has two. One has two. Ahad does not have two. An example they give in the Arabic language, if you say to me, Sheikh Khaled, who came to your house today? I would say to you, Ma ja'ani ahad. Meaning what? Meaning nobody came. However, I use the term ahad, not wahid. Why? Because if I said lam ya'ti wahid or ma ja'ani wahid, I could be right. One didn't come, but two individuals could have came. Three individuals could have came, not just one. But if I say ma ja'ani ahad or lam ya'ti ahad, means that no one at all came. Now, see, the difference here is one word, where in English it has to be a different sentence, right? When I say no one came, I mean that no one, no two, no three, no four came, right? In Arabic, I say lam ya'tini wahid. It's not that, yeah, no one came, but two could have come, three could have come. But if I say lam ya'ti ahad, means that nobody, absolutely nobody came. So that is the term ahad. In other, they say ahad is also a connection or a pointing or alluding to the concept of what we call in Arabic basata, that He, the Almighty, is basir, meaning that He is not made up of particles. He is not made up of parts. He is not made up of a body, a physical body. He is not one of something else. That He is not, um, you know, that He doesn't have through the logical description. He doesn't have a jins. He doesn't have a fasl. He doesn't have a mahiyah. He's not made up of, or he's not a part of something else. He cannot be attributed to something else. He cannot be extrapolated by something else. That's another understanding. Al-Imam al-Baqir salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says, Al-Ahad al-Mutafarrid wal-Wahid wal-Ahad al-Wahid bima'na wahid. Al-Ahad is he who is separated from everything else. And the one by the meaning, he who is separated, he who is far, who is distanced from what can be perceived. And Tawheed is asserting that there is only one by himself, all alone, without any other. Then they say, at the end of it, they say that إن بناء العدد من الواحد وليس الواحد من العدد. So this is sort of a philosophical concept, but they say in actuality, one is not a part of the counting system. You don't start counting from one, and in reality, you start counting from two, because one is absolute, one is by itself. When you start counting from the number two, meaning, again, it's a philosophical point which is kind of difficult to explain. But what they're trying to say here is that one is absolute. It's only one. You can't count one. It's just one. But counting begins from two, right? So for example, I have two rings. When I want to count, what do I count? I count 1, 2, right?
Yeah.
But if I only had the one ring, then I can't count it. It's just one. I don't say, oh, let me count how many rings I have. I count one. You know what I mean? It's it by itself. It's not a part. It doesn't enter the concept of counting. They're trying to allude here to the concept of ahad. It's the fact that Allah does not enter the numerical concept. Allah is not like anything else. So when we say that Allah is one, is that He is one, indivisible, absolute, none like Him.
Yeah. This reminds me of.
Go ahead.
No, I said this reminds me of a story I read. In the tradition have about Imam Ali and Sayyidah Zainab, and he was teaching her how to count.
Yeah.
And he told her kul wahed, and she said wahed, and then he told her kul itnain, and she wouldn't say it. And he tried it again, and he tried it again, and he asked her, why would you not say itnain? She goes like, how can I say itnain with the tongue that says wahed?
Allah.
Just shows you how important it is from the birth, from the Ahlul Bayt themselves. Just shows you how important and how ingrained Tawheed was inside of them. It's just beautiful.
Absolutely. You know what? to add to your story, and we'll finish with this if you don't mind, Sayyidina.
Of course, yeah.
They narrate that in the battle of Jamil, the battle of the camel, a man, a Bedouin, came to the Imam and he said to the Imam, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ataqul inna Allah wahid? Do you say that Allah is one, indivisible? They say that the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they flocked him. And they started saying, what are you doing? Is this really the time for you to ask such a silly question? Or sorry, not a silly question, but is this really the time for such a question? We are about to we're in the midst of battle. You see that the Muslims are fighting, that the people are fighting, that the limbs are flying, and you're going to ask about Tawheed? Is this really the time for it? They say the Imam here told them to be quiet. He says, hush. It is that what the Arabi wants, the reason that we are fighting these individuals. It is that which we want from these individuals. Meaning what? Meaning, had these individuals had a proper concept of Tawheed, then they would by turn have a proper concept of Nabuwwah. And if they had a proper concept of Nabuwwah, they would have had a proper concept of Imamah. And if they had a proper concept of Imamah, we wouldn't have fought.
Yeah.
Then the Imam says to him, he says, Ya A'rabi, إن القول في أن الله واحد على أربعة أقسام. على أربعة أقسام. The saying that Allah is one is divided into 4 divisions. 2 of them cannot be attributed to Allah, and 2 of them can. As for the 2 that cannot be attributed to Allah, it's the one that is intended to say that Allah is one of a numerical system. Do you not, which is something that cannot be said towards Allah? For he who does not have a second does not have a third. Do you not see that those who made Allah one of 3 are considered blasphemers? Huwa wahid. Those who say that he is those who say that he is one of 3. Then there is the second type, who say, remember we said that there's 2 that cannot be attributed to Allah and 2 that can. The second type that cannot be attributed to Allah is saying that he is one, wanting to say that he is just like another. Wahidun minan nas, meaning he is one just like the other people on earth, wanting to do tajseem, wanting to give him a physical form. That is the second. However, as for the 2 that can be attributed to the Almighty, is one of the first of them is saying he is one unlike any other, which is our Lord. And the second is that he, the Almighty, supreme and exalted is he, one يعني به أنه لا ينقسم في وجوده, that he is one, that meaning that he within his existence cannot be separated into parts. Now this takes an explanation. I will touch upon it, and inshallah we will touch upon it in our next episode. What does that mean? That means that when I say Sayyid Ali is handsome, is tall, I don't remember if you're tall or not, but let's say you're tall, is handsome, is tall, is smart, has a beautiful smile. These are examples. Don't let them get to your head. So when I say these things can be attributed to you and to someone else, right? Not me, but to somebody else. They can be attributed to a different individual. When I say these attributes, if I strip these attributes from you, your existence does not change. So if I don't attribute to you handsomeness, if you're not handsome, if you're ugly, let's say, God forbid, that does not change your existence. That does not change who you are as a man in his mid-20s, what have you. Correct? The Imam here says that Allah's existence cannot be separated from his attributes, because he cannot be added to. If you add it to him, then you have made him in a place of want and need. And if you have done so, then you do not know him. And inshallah, we will elaborate on this in the upcoming episode. And I apologize for taking a lot of your time. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
No, thank you very much, Sheikh. Now, that's amazing lecture you gave today.
At your service, Sayyid. Any questions, Sayyidina?
I don't. Any questions? If there are, you guys can ask them now. If not, then we can end with the dua, and do we see any questions, Brother Mustafa?
No, I don't actually.
All right, end it here, Sheikh. Now.
Inshallah. Sayyidina, I've read the dua the past number of times. This time I'd like to leave the dua for you. I'd like to hear you give us the dua, if I'm not putting you on the spot.
No, of course we can. One thing we can end with, is just, I would say dua faraj, because that's literally the best thing we can pray for is our Imam, the Imam of our time, to gain closeness to him. It's Friday night. He said that he's supposed to return on a Friday, but he hasn't, so let's recite together,
Sayyidina, before you begin reciting, I just want to touch up on something. When we are saying we are awaiting, when we are waiting for the faraj, there's something I would like my brothers and sisters to keep in mind. The concept of waiting for faraj means that you are waiting for him in your lifetime. That when you wake up in the morning, you are expecting his return. That's what the word faraj means. The word faraj doesn't mean that we expect him to return sometime. The word faraj means that we expect him to return in our time. Is that clear, Sayyidina?
Yeah.
Inshallah, I will leave it up to you to do the dua.
Of course, just Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kun li waliyika lil hujjat nil Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala abahi fi hadhihi sa wa fi kulli sa waliya wa hafida wa qaida wa nasiran وجليلا وأينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتمتعوا فيها طويلا برحمتك الله يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. I ask Allah that you are from amongst his companions and that we follow in your footsteps, inshallah, the footsteps of our Imam al-Hajj Adulullah ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif.
Inshallah, Sheikh, inshallah. And thank you very much for today. And inshallah, we'll continue in about 2 Fridays from today.
Inshallah. So it's going to be every second Friday, inshallah?
Yes, inshallah.
Inshallah.